Aside from me, all the gentlemen up here are all Brother Rice grads. Myself, I'm a dad. My sons are Luke and Alex Krachowski. Don't hold that against me. If they do anything wrong, I'll give you my cell number and you can text me anytime. So for today, we're going to talk about the different types of commercial real estate. So when you first hear about commercial real estate, you basically think everything else that isn't a house, right? Something that you don't live in. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the different services that commercial real estate firms provide. There's 8 major categories of that, but we'll go through that. If we have enough time, which I don't know that we will with a little bit of delay here, we'll go through a case study real quick and then open it up for questions. Last time we didn't have a lot of questions, a lot of time for questions, so we want to make sure that we address that with you. So why don't we jump into it? Okay. We'll skip introductions and stuff. So what I want to talk about here is kind of 8 categories of 7 categories of real estate. So first off, we'll start, when most people talk about commercial real estate, it's office, industrial, and retail, right? So we're going to start with those and then we'll delve into a little bit of more details. So Britt, if you want to talk about industrial real estate, sure, real quick, and as you go, I'm just going to write down all the types of industrial real estate.
Sure, yeah.
So, and I got a little cheat sheet here for you too.
I don't need that, Gary.
Yeah.
Eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, man. Come on. All right, we'll talk about industrial first, guys. So industrial has been an evolving asset class. When I got started in this like 15 years ago, it was a little bit of an afterthought. It was kind of like, hey, these manufacturing buildings, distribution buildings, not all that special. The last 15 years have been kind of a boom for industrial. A lot of that started with Amazon and you guys ordering stuff for the next morning and stuff having to be close and all their competitors then following suit. And then recently with manufacturing and onshoring, a lot of it's come back with COVID and everything else. So the major categories that we kind of think about industrial is, a little higher level, is warehouse distribution, which is like the big warehouses you see with a million truck docks that are kind of dug out with trucks coming in and out all day. Manufacturing. And then there's what I'm going to call flex R&D spaces, which is a little heavier office component, power, maybe some unique features. And then there's some real specialized classes we don't need to get into, like somehow we do a lot of waste management deals in this town, and recycling, self-storage, things like that. So those are the main buckets. If you think about it as distribution, manufacturing, flex R&D, and then kind of specialized. If you drive around town, you'll see various types. A lot of these Detroit parks are industrial parks with different sized buildings, anywhere from 10 to 500,000 square feet, depending on who it is and what it is. And there's kind of single tenant and multi-tenant. Multi-tenant typically has a bunch of different groups in it that share walls. They pay rent to a landlord, and the single tenant can be typically more owner-user or potentially like a like a build-to-suit, which would be a group that needs a building. They have a very particular use. They build the building and they occupy and use it. So, like I said, it's been an evolving asset class. It's very, very popular now with investors. It gets some of the best returns, and honestly, it trades at some of the best numbers now. So, I'll stop there. I can go deep, but that's kind of the high level of industrial.
Good.
Yep.
Retail stuff?
Yeah. So retail, I'll ask you guys to help me a little bit about kind of rattle off some of the examples, because this is obviously kind of the easiest one for you guys to grasp. You guys see it every day. So when we think about retail, there's 10 different types of retail. Anyone give me, throw some examples out. Store. So store, there's a few different types, right? So we'll start with a standalone store. That'd be like your Costco, right? It's by itself, standalone. Other stores, like a strip center. Give me an example of where that one is near us.
Maple and Lobster.
Maple and Lobster, Plum Market. Usually a lot of times grocery anchored, and then a bunch of fill-in stores, from there. What else?
Malls.
Mall, Somerset. What else? Power center. Anyone know what a power center is? Power center is usually it's like a minimum of like 2 or 3 big box stores, so think about,
Coolidge and Maple, Target, Home Depot, those.
exactly,
Yeah.
Target, Home Depot, that would be a power center. What else?
Restaurant.
Food, right? Food and beverage, so any of your fast casual stuff, the guys you go, like.
Is drive-through a standalone?
That's a good question. So, your Chipotle's, your Chick-fil-A, that kind of thing. What else?
Gas stations.
Gas stations, convenience, right? Showroom retail, that's kind of more like your, it's almost like an industrial building that may have a front, like a tile shop or something like that. How many we got? Probably one more. Oh, two more. Outlet centers and urban walkable. So that'd be like downtown Birmingham, boutique style shops.
Yeah, it's a good list.
I think that's a good list.
So, and I'll say any of these things, we can go really granular, right? We can get into like details of like different markets, big downtown areas, small downtown areas, big markets, small markets. So the next food group that I'll talk about is office space. So office space, we have traditional office. This is like everything you see on Big Beaver, right? These are, you think about conference rooms, offices, maybe some cube areas for accountants, attorneys, sales companies, marketing companies. We also have a specialty class of medical office buildings. These are traditionally just abbreviated MOBs. This is almost an industry all in above itself. There's specialty contractors, specialty owners, specialty users that are its own kind of class there. Then we have outside of the traditional, we'll just call it the creative type spaces. These are a lot of marketing companies. Think about like Google. When Google opened up their office out in California, they had a lot of open area, they had ping pong tables and slides and all this kind of entertainment stuff for their offices. We see a lot more of this today than we probably ever have. There's also co-working. So, does anybody know the big co-working operator in the world? World's largest co-working operator? Anybody ever heard of WeWork?
Oh, yeah.
WeWork, right? So WeWork is this model that they get a big floor on an office building, and then what they do is they lease out individual offices. Even within co-working, there's probably 4 or 5 different brands and models that are there. What am I missing here? Call centers, that's a big thing in this town. These are, when you call into customer service and somebody answers the phone for your credit card, your mortgage, for all of those things. These are also a lot of sales offices, so a lot of mortgage companies in this town. So you think of like Quicken and Rock and United Wholesale Mortgage. United Wholesale Mortgage bought that whole campus up in Pontiac. These are huge floor plates with thousands of workstations in them. So then I'll also put in this side here, research and development. So we also saw this asset over in the industrial side. These are kind of like in-betweener type facilities. We see a lot of it in Detroit. A lot of engineering companies, a lot of automotive companies, they'll have R&D facilities here. We have, and then outside of this, or I'll say within all of this, we have like large office campuses and like big corporate headquarters. So again, a lot of automotive in this town. You look at regional offices for Siemens, TRW, the office campus for Stellantis, formerly Chrysler, up in Auburn Hills, 4 million square foot office building. When General Motors was in the Renaissance Center, these are big, large office campuses. And then I'll just say, all the specialty stuff here. So this could be government offices or schools. There's a wide range of that sort of stuff. So that's kind of the office world right there. Next, let's talk about multifamily. Later.
Yeah, multifamily, pretty much everywhere you can live, but single-family houses and duplexes, right? So you got the garden apartments, those are traditional apartments you see everywhere, typically 1, 2, or 3 stories. After that, mid-rise, 4 to 7 stories, give or take. And then you got the high-rise apartments. You know, those are everything you see downtown Detroit. Outside of that, you know, luxury apartments, affordable housing, that's, the government gives you money and cheaper rent, you know, mostly Detroit again. Student housing, senior living communities, it's like American House, I think it's by Kroger, somewhere over there. Multi-use developments, traditionally retail and office buildings with apartments on top. And then you got your townhouses, condominiums, and then, you know, micro units, those are typically 800 square feet or less. After that, loft apartments, those are traditionally converted industrial buildings into apartments. And live workspaces. It's just like on Clark Street, south of Big Rock, if you guys are familiar with that. I think that's it.
Cool. Land stuff?
Yeah, can I stay here?
Yeah, go ahead.
You've got, so you got, land's where it all starts, right? And you've got raw land before it's developed. Before it's developed for any type of structure, and that structure depends on the zoning. Gary has written down here zoning and its impact on land use and value, and most importantly, the zoning affects our commission, usually, more times than not. Zoning can be, you've got the main ones are residential, and then commercial. And within commercial, you've got office, industrial, and retail. So basically, you have residential or commercial. Is it residential land or is it commercial? If it's residential, it's basically just single-family homes, right?
Mhm.
Whereas if it's commercial, then that's where it gets.
Or apartments.
Multifamily. That's even falls into commercial, isn't it?
It's residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's enough density.
And then you've got mixed-use land, which is, I guess when it gets a little more tricky, if there, you'll see that in like a city or like a city like Pontiac, who's trying to get creative with bringing people there. Retail on the bottom and office on top. Usually, just ends up being, what does it usually end up being whenever they want that? Just ends up being some sort of.
Well,
office building.
it's office, retail, and
Could be
residential.
residential. Yeah,
Mixed use.
yeah. You've got recreational land. Don't really see a lot of that around here. That's more, probably more north, on the outskirts of town for hunting, vacation homes, lakefront stuff. Agricultural land, same thing. Farming, specialties like, yeah, just farming. Don't we go?
And then everything else, we'll just call it specialty. Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, so that's 5. What else we got? I'll just add another category here of like specialty stuff. What's that?
Religious and that kind of stuff.
Yep. I'll just call this specialty real estate. So like think about a church, school. Then we get the fun ones like golf courses, marinas, resorts, ski resorts, car dealerships, car washes, repair shops, movie theaters, bowling alleys, casinos. Then you get some of the government things like museums or movie theaters, like downtown, the like the ballparks, you know, all the stadiums, that sort of stuff. So this is a really broad category, which is basically everything else there. And then lastly, the last food group is investment real estate. So you want to talk about that real quick, Paulie? And a lot of that investment encompasses all of this stuff.
All right, guys, good morning. We're throwing a lot of info at you here, aren't we? So, I think the purpose of today, and when we're drilling down on this, is to show you guys, in commercial real estate, there's a lot of different, roads to take. So, it all kind of ties back to investment. So at the end of the day, everything you see here starts with a simple premise: can you make money, right? So, people aren't gonna buy a piece of land and build a warehouse unless they can make money, right? And there has to be a need. So if I'm gonna build a warehouse, I need to know that there's gonna be people out there that are gonna rent it. So the way investment works is basically you take a spreadsheet and you start putting in, just like when you guys are looking at doing a project or something, you're gonna say, it's gonna cost me X, and then if I can rent it out, it's worth this much to me back, and then that'll give me, so if you spend $100 and you're gonna make $10 a year, you're getting a 10% investment return, okay? So high level, investment is basically the profit of it, right? So now what happens is, all these different specialties, there has to be a demand and a supply. So when you guys are looking at, and investment is a lot deeper than I probably want to get into today, but it's really just running what you call numbers. You run pro forma, which is your lines of expenses and income. So in every aspect here, and the big ones right now are industrial and multifamily, and it changes. It used to be office. Office used to be a very hot product, and now, because of COVID, office is being used less, right? People are changing how they use office space. So it's a very, it's a dicey, it's a very, that's gonna be a troubled market in the next couple of years, and it has been for probably a few years. Last time what we didn't do is have questions.
Yeah, so that's good for now. Let me just do one more graphic and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, there we go.
Cool.
What about the idea of like not a cap, but like a spread on how you make money in investment real estate?
Well, that's what I said, 10% return.
All right.
Okay, so the purpose of this here is to show you that commercial real estate is at least 50 to 70 different types of categories here, right? All the guys in this room are predominantly office or industrial brokers. I'll talk about brokerage and where that fits into all of this here in a second. So, but just know that from looking at this, there are many different types of commercial real estate. So what we do with all of that is, say this is the circle. We have industrial, office, retail, multifamily, lands, the specialty stuff,
Is that blocking? That's so big.
and investment. So then from there, this is basically what Colliers does, is we have a brokerage division where we buy, sell, and lease all of these different types of buildings. We also have property management, which basically works for the owner to make sure that the snow's plowed, the trash is picked up, the lights are on, the toilet's flushed properly, they need to replace the roof, they need to do some maintenance on the building. Let me get my list here so I go in order. Then we have capital markets. This is essentially, think of this as like getting mortgages, right, for these buildings, commercial mortgages. We have project management, which is basically construction. Now this can take a lot of different facets. This could be taking raw land and actually building a building there. This could be taking an existing office space and converting it to the next use. So say it was a law firm and a marketing company wants to go in there. Well, that's gonna be a completely different type of setup for that. And that's where construction and project management would come in. We have appraisal. Anybody know what an appraisal is?
Like making sure something is good enough to use it, see how it works.
Yeah, so that's a real simple answer, is seeing how much it's worth, right? So based on what everything else in the market sold for, what is that worth? Then you have the insurance industry, which I think people are pretty much familiar with. We have a tax appeal group. So our tax appeal group will take your taxes, so say an industrial building in Troy, the city is saying that your taxes are $100,000, and they base that off of your value, your appraisal. Well, you can go back and argue and say, my building's not worth that much, you should tax me lower. This is a whole division of our office that works on just tax appeal. And then lastly, you have engineering and design. So think of this as just architects, right? Are these buildings designed for what they need to do? So again, once we take all of these different food groups of types of real estate, which is, we demonstrated that earlier, that's 50 to 70 different types of individual real estate. Then you have all these different service lines. So in the brokerage world, which we all work in every day, you have brokers who go out and they're just office brokers, they're just industrial brokers, they're retail brokers. But you have specialty brokers that we have a whole group that just sells golf courses, or marinas, or churches. Yeah, self-storage is a big market. So within every single one of these service lines, there's 50 to 70 different ways to go in commercial real estate. There's property managers that specialize just in industrial buildings. There's property managers that specialize just in multifamily properties. And in fact, to get a little bit lower down there, there's property managers who specialize in multifamily senior living, multifamily student housing. So you can see how our world, as far as commercial real estate, gets really vast and really big really quickly. And that's why it's important for anybody considering going into real estate to understand this, but also, once you get later into your career, to really focus on a specific area.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add to that, find something that you love and that you understand and that you like, because it's a lot easier. The guys that are good at what they do, typically like what they do, and they last, and you're gonna be doing this for a long time, and you don't wanna, get into something that you don't love every day. I think we all love what we do. I don't feel like I really go to work every day. I feel like, it's something I enjoy, and I've always been focused on industrial, but I like it, and I love it, and I love what I do, and it makes it fun, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. So I'll leave it at that. I realize that this is just totally dumping a lot of information on you guys as far as the overall industry, but I think it's important to understand, when people talk about commercial real estate, it's a humongous industry, right? And all these different little baskets and all these different little types of services that go along with commercial real estate. So I'll open it up for questions, and we'll see what we can come up with. Yeah.
Which field of commercial real estate do you guys believe has the biggest future?
Britt, you want to take that?
I mean, I'm kind of partial, man.
I can answer.
This is probably a Paul question.
Let me answer.
I'm a big proponent of industrial, and I would go all day, but we'll let Paul can take this.
So I kind of touched on this earlier, and it's gonna change. So right now, and I'd say for the last 10 years, multifamily, which is apartment buildings, has been the biggest segment that everyone's been trying to, buy and build. So you see the, office buildings, think about it, they started to drop with people staying home from work. So now you've got developers trying to convert office buildings into apartments. So you know, it's gonna always change. Office buildings used to be the hot product in the 80s because every office and company was growing, and then it started to fade. Now multifamily's big, and multifamily and industrial right now are the two biggest segments. But you know what, guys? By the time you're getting out of college, it might be retail. It might be, so you know, just like anything, everything's gonna change.
Yeah. In '08 and '09, you know, I started in 2001, and in '08 and '09, you know, guys would laugh at the industrial brokers. We had nothing to do. There was signs on every building. The automotive, you know, industry crashed, and nobody wanted to be an industrial broker. We were jealous of all the office brokers because they were making 5% fees, and every, you know, the demand was there. And then, like Paul said, you know, a decade later, you know, things start to pivot. And so, like Paul said, it may be something totally different than what it is today.
Yeah, but right now it's industrial and it's multifamily.
And I'd probably add on to that too, you guys, in recognizing opportunity, sometimes it's okay to kind of go into the fire. Like Pete said, industrial was dead in '08, '09. I got into business then and decided I want to work in industrial because everybody was running out and I recognized opportunity going in.
Yeah. As a broker, you can make money on the way up or the way down because there's transactions happening in either scenario, and there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity right now in office. No one wants an office building, and you can buy an office building for cheaper than you ever could, you know, but it's always the return and the opportunity is associated with risk, and there's a lot of risk in that building.
I'm gonna mention something on that. So, you guys were at, you know, Lasser and 14.5 Mile. An office building at 10 Mile and Telegraph, Raleigh Center, I'll use that as an example. There's an office building that it's 300,000 square feet. If you're gonna build it today, it would cost about $60 to $70 million to build it. And it just sold for $3 million. Okay? So I bring that up because there's a lot of money that can be made and a lot of money that can be lost, and it shows you the trends. So now industrial, same thing. It's going to cost somebody, if you're going to build a, you know, 10,000 square foot industrial building, it's going to cost you probably $2 million. It's going to cost you $2 million to build. But right now, you can buy them for probably $1 million to $1.3 million. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's, right now, you'd rather buy an office building when you think about it. If I could buy a $70 million building for $3 million, I'd rather do that than buy an industrial building. But it's not always the case, because you can't really lease out that office building right now.
Well, there's
All right.
carry and everything. It's nuanced, right?
Other questions? Yeah.
Do you ever think AI will take over real estate?
Yeah, I'll talk about this. I think AI will help the industry, right? I think AI in general across all companies will make it much easier to do business and to gather information, to aggregate large amounts of information. So the way that I see it working in our industry is we have large databases of every tenant in every space, who the decision maker is, how many square feet they're in, and when their lease expires. So for us, that's a manual task. We have to go in, run a report, figure out who the most likely tenant is to take a vacant space. Well, if we can put AI on top of that database and say, and punch in and say, who are the 10 most likely people to take this building, and then write them an email, ask them if they're looking for space, and send them emails. That's where AI is gonna really make our lives a lot easier. At the end of the day, people still need places to go, right? People are still gonna need a retail place. We're still gonna need warehouses to store goods, you know, that people wanna buy. So commercial real estate's not gonna go away. It's just gonna make our business a lot faster and a lot easier.
And the brokers that are gonna separate themselves when, you know, AI evolves are the brokers that are focused on being an advisor as opposed to just a transaction facilitator. Meaning, you know, the brokers that are good in our industry are an extension of a company's real estate department. And they're in meetings talking about strategy of what to do with their real estate portfolio, whether it's a developer or it's a company that has 100 buildings across the country. And you might be in a meeting talking about, you know, hey, why don't you take this building and this building here in Ohio, and this building in Michigan, and consolidate them. And, you know, the way the supply chain works, you know, we think that, you know, Gary, Indiana is a better spot for you guys to be. So like those conversations as a broker is where I think we're gonna have to go to succeed, as opposed to just a guy that opens doors.
And the other piece of that is, the reason why I think all of us are in real estate is it's tangible, meaning you can see it, you can drive to it, you can walk through it. You know, when I decided to get into real estate, it was because my father and my grandfather were kind of in real estate, so like we talked about, something that draws you to it. But ultimately, I remember going to buildings when I was a kid and sweeping the floors. You can't do that with a stock. You know, you guys can go online and buy, you know, Google stock, you can buy Apple stock, and you guys can probably maybe make money, maybe not. But you don't really know what's going on behind the doors of those companies. You could lose money like crazy one day. With real estate, you see it, you can look at it, you're like, hey, I need to paint that area over there and make it look nicer. So the one thing about AI is it's never gonna replace the experience of walking into a building, and everyone's gonna have to make a decision if they're gonna buy or rent something, and they're not gonna do it unless they can see it, and they can look at it and walk around it. So they're gonna need brokers for that, and I don't think that'll ever go away. I mean, you guys, I started before computers, so.
All right, let's get one more question here. Brady.
I just have a question, like, how does your, like, everyday look like? How much are you in the office? How much are you, like, looking at other properties or stuff like
Yeah,
that?
that's a whole different class, but.
Well, when you're young like Royer, you're in early every day and you leave late. When you're established like Kepek and Grachowski and these guys, you play a lot of golf.
That's not true.
I'm kidding with that.
Yeah,
No,
we can talk about kind of our day and what that looks like, but that's a 10-minute, it's a 30-minute conversation. So,
all right, guys.
thanks, guys.
Yeah.
If you guys have any other questions, you tell me here for a minute. You guys, go ahead.